Breaking news, I'm Shepard Smith in New York, and our reporting begins with the bombshell article that broke in the last hour from the New York Times. It's a lengthy and comprehensive piece of reporting that includes this. Sources tell the Times that President Trump asked the Attorney General Matt Whitaker if he could replace the head of the Michael Cohen investigation with a Trump ally who had already recused himself from the probe. Our senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano, calls this evidence of corrupt intent and the very definition of obstruction of justice. Minutes ago, the president denied that he made the request. We'll hear from the president shortly. The Times reporting is by Mark Mazzetti, Maggie Haberman, Nicholas Fandos, and Michael Schmidt. And the context here is important. Let's revisit what had happened. Remember, Michael Cohen had been involved with the paying of hush money to two women who had claimed they had sex with the president. He was the president's longtime lawyer and fixer, and the feds raided his home and office. Remember, initially, the president expressed support for Michael Cohen. His lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, called Cohen honest. But when Cohen told the court that Donald Trump had ordered him to make the payments, and as we reported here, testified that in essence the president was something of an unindicted co-conspirator, the president and his supporters turned on Cohen. So with Jeff Sessions out as Attorney General, the president installed Matt Whitaker in that position. He'd been a U.S. attorney and then a CNN contributor who said, among other things, that the Mueller investigation had gone too far, that Trump finances were beyond Mueller's purview. In short, he'd sided publicly against Mueller and with the president. As acting Attorney General, Whitaker had previously said to associates that his job was to protect the president. The Times reports he told associates privately that his job was to jump on a grenade for the president. So with Michael Cohen cooperating and the investigation building, the Times reports the president called the new acting Attorney General, who seemed to be a Trump ally, and asked him if a new person could be put in charge of the Cohen probe. As the Time report goes, he asked whether Jeffrey Berman, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York and a Trump ally, could be put in charge of the widening investigation, according to several American officials with direct knowledge of the call. In essence, according to the Times, the president asked if someone he considers a loyalist could lead the investigation of which he was a part. The Times writes that there is no evidence Whitaker acted on the question, but it's the alleged phone call itself that raises the legal questions. Provided the Times reporting is accurate, did the president break the law in making the call to the Attorney General? We'll take that to Judge Napolitano shortly. First, John Roberts reporting with the president's reaction just a short time ago. John, to you.
And Shep, good afternoon to you. Another in a long list of allegations that at some point along the line, President Trump has tried to use his influence to try to influence an investigation. A short time ago, signing his Directive Number 4 for the Space Force to create it under the auspices of the U.S. Air Force. President Trump was asked about this and denied that he asked Whitaker to put Berman in charge of the widening investigations there in the Southern District of New York. He also denied any idea that he had soured on Whitaker as the acting Attorney General as a result of that. Listen to what the president said here.
No, not at all. I don't know who gave you that. Just more fake news. There's a lot of fake news out there. No, I didn't.
What is the current status of your relationship with Mr. Whitaker?
Very good. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Whitaker. I think he's done a great job. He's a very, very straight shooter. I watched him during the hearing, some of it. I thought he was exceptional. He's a very fine man, and he should be given a lot of thanks by our nation.
So the president there saying he's got no problem with Matt Whitaker, who will no longer be the Attorney General very shortly, but then also going back to say he never asked Whitaker to put Jeffrey Berman, who's the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, in charge of the investigation after Berman had recused himself. Now, the president said there, I don't know who gave that to you. That's fake news. The president sounded almost surprised being asked about that question, but according to Maggie Haberman, who is one of the names you mentioned, Shep, that was on the byline of the piece, she tweeted a short time ago, as often happens, White House was fully briefed on the story's reportage and did not choose to say anything ahead of the publication. Then the president comments afterwards. So the president was fully aware of everything that the New York Times was going to report. In a statement, the Department of Justice also shooting down the allegation that the president president asked Whitaker to do him a solid. The DOJ saying, quote, under oath to the House Judiciary Committee, then acting Attorney General Whitaker stated that at no time has the White House asked for, nor have I provided any promises or commitments concerning the special counsel's investigation or any other investigation. Mr. Whitaker stands by his testimony. No question, though, Shep, this will just add to the litany of items that the Democrats are going to be investigating for the next 18 to 20 months. Shep?
John Roberts will be back to you shortly. Remember the wording there, no promises or commitments. That's not what the Times is reporting. Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano is here. They're not saying, the Times is not reporting that Matt Whitaker provided promises or anything else. Here's what they're saying, that a phone call was made, and here's the full screen. In this phone call, the president asked whether Jeffrey Berman, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York and a Trump ally, could be put in charge of the widening investigation, the Cohen investigation, according to several American officials with direct knowledge of the call, asking him, hey, could we put my ally over here in charge of this Cohen thing? Because the Cohen thing had just gone very badly when Cohen testified under oath that the president directed him to make those calls, and in essence, according to the reading of that, making him something of an unindicted co-conspirator.
And Matt Whitaker testified under oath just a week or 10 days ago. The president referred to that testimony in answer to the question from one of the reporters, that he had not been asked to influence any decisions that the DOJ was being asked to make.
Well, is that the same thing, though? Because what he said was, could you put this other guy in charge? Could he be put in charge? The semantics often matter.
They do, because there's two potential crimes here for Matt Whitaker. One is actual perjury, lying to the Congress. The other is misleading. Remember, you could be truthful, but still misleading. And there are those two statutes there. You not only have to be truthful, you cannot mislead. So if he said, the president never asked me to do something, and it's misleading because he knew what the president wanted. Look, Jeff Berman is a respected lawyer because he's respected.
That's the one that, according to the Times reporting, the president wanted put in charge of the Cohen investigation.
Because the president nominated him and caused him to be the chief federal prosecutor in Manhattan. But Mr. Berman had the good ethical sense to say, this involves Donald Trump. I'm not involved in it.
This phone call, if the Times reporting is accurate, is that phone call evidence? The phone call would be evidence of what?
Corrupt intent. That is, an effort to use the levers of power of the government for a corrupt purpose, to deflect an investigation into himself or his allies. Remember, the federal prosecutors in New York have two investigations going on. One was the investigation of Michael Cohen, and that is passed on to a guy named Robert Kazumi. Bob Kazumi, a professional prosecutor, an apolitical person, used to be the chief prosecutor at the Securities and Exchange Commission. He's the one who told a federal judge, this Michael Cohen, David Pecker, paying women to remain silent was orchestrated by Donald Trump. Second investigation, one still going on here in New York, is the investigation of the Trump inaugural and transition. Who paid for all that? And was there anything that went wrong in the payments? This must be some there because they are investigating it. President Trump, if the New York Times is correct, wanted his ally to be in charge of both of those investigations. And Matt Whitaker, to his credit, apparently, did not execute that command.
But that phone call, you said that's evident of corrupt intent.
On the part of the president, because he's making a
Would that be obstruction?
Yes. It would be attempted obstruction. It would only be obstruction if it succeeded. But if you try to interfere with a criminal prosecution that may knock at your own door, by putting your ally in there, that is clearly an attempt to obstruct justice.
The article is lengthy. It's online on the homepage at NewYorkTimes.com. Judge, there's more to it. There's discussion of others who are close to the president.
There's a very, very disturbing discussion in this article, which again the president denies, about his utilization of colleagues in Congress and utilizing...
Well, he wasn't actually asked about this part, but go on.
You're right. At least in the part we saw, utilizing their subpoena power, because the Republicans controlled the House of Representatives at the time, to subpoena documents that Bob Mueller wanted to keep secret in order to interfere with Mueller or embarrass Mueller or cause people to question Mueller's motivation. Quite frankly, I've never seen anything like this before. A sitting president of the United States using his allies in the Congress to interfere with an ongoing criminal investigation. This breaks new ground.
That's the allegation in the Times report today. The four reporters with the bylines there, people will know them, and their reporting has stood up quite well. You wonder, we're at the very beginning of this. This has only been out in the open for the last hour and a half. The president's White House had been involved, but if you watched him there, just as John Roberts just reported, it appeared from the president's reaction that he knew nothing of this. But certainly his White House did, because Maggie Haberman says the Times told them.
It appeared that he was surprised by the question. Now, maybe he was unaware.
Maybe he didn't know the article was out.
Right,
We don't know.
Didn't know the article was out. But the article is, quite frankly, dynamite, lengthy, and well documented. Where it goes from here, I don't know. But I'll tell you who I know is reading it as we speak. Bob Mueller and team.
Judge, thank you.
You're welcome.
Much more on this as it comes.